see dope people. Welcome back to another episode of Dope People. I am your host, Brooklyn's favorite Polymath. And once again, we are here interviewing dope people. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the term, dope simply means somebody or something that's amazing, that's really interesting, and that's what I like to do. I know a lot of dope people, and I want to get you to know some of those dope people. Now, today is a very, very, very special day because I have in the studio with me, well, virtually, in the studio with me, a nationally and internationally known person. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the international president of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, Miss Stacie NC Grant. Put your hands together. Stacie, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for being who you are and allowing me to join this dope podcast.
Oh man, please listen. The honor is all mine. You can't take none of that away from me. So, Stacie, we normally start off this podcast with getting a sort of a litmus test from my guests, and so I want to know how you understand dope. So, tell me, who's the dopest person that you know or have ever met?
Whoa, that's a hard question, but the first person that comes to my mind is my maternal grandmother. She's one of the dopest people that I ever knew, and she left this planet at 98 years young in 2015. And she's from Jamaica, West Indies. Didn't go past a high school education, came to this country and created a new path for herself, and she was able to excel at the job that she had at Bankers Trust. I'm really dating for those who know when that bank
Active
was even
trust.
Bankers Trust,
Wow.
exactly. And she switched roles with my grandfather when they came here. He was 20 years her senior, and he came here and stayed home. And she went out to work, which was an interesting dynamic
Especially
because
for
he was
back
there
then.
he was taking care of me. So when I say dope, she was a woman of faith. She was a woman of resilience. And my whole platform that I love to share with the world is about that dope faith that she had in God, that
Amazing.
nothing was impossible. And if God told her it was so, it was so. So I get to honor some of those prayers that she had that she did not get to see in full fruition while she was here. But those prayers, I believe, are efficacious. For those of you who know what that means, they didn't die. So her granddaughter is living out that dream. And she was dope because until she took her last breath, she stood on the faith that brought her 98 years on this planet. And she left that. She said, I might not be able to leave a lot of, maternal material things, but what I will leave is for you all to have a relationship with God. And for that, I feel she's one of the dopest people that I've ever known.
Now, listen, Stacie. You know I could listen to you talk forever, like for hours and hours and hours, and I got this imagery of this woman just like killing it, man, and it's so interesting because we oftentimes talk about the struggles that we have, and we have a recency bias, but like when you think about what some of the people who went before us were able to achieve with nothing, with the
So much
resources
less.
that are like a small increment of what we have available to us today. It's
That's right.
really just encouraging to know. It's like, all right, well, if they can do it and they had very little, I need to take what I have and really grow my mustard seed.
Absolutely. And that's what's important. Everyone has the right to believe what they want to believe, right? And for people of faith like myself, it's a choice, right? You choose with your free will to believe there's a God, because not everybody believes that. But what I loved about her, Hayden, is the fact that I'll give you one quick story. She was going for a house with my grandfather, and they got paperwork together. They're going to buy their house. And the loan officer is looking at the papers and saying, this is not quite adding up. We're not going to be able to really help you get this mortgage. And she looked at the loan officer, and this is all according to my uncle who told the story. He was standing there, and the loan officer said, what is it, ma'am? She said, God told me I was getting a house, so I'm not leaving here until I have my house. Right? So my grandfather, think of a proud West Indian Jamaican man, sitting there and the people telling you you can't get something and your wife is like, I'm not moving. So I can only imagine what that looked like. And my uncle said that they went back and forth. The loan officer's going to the back, talks to the supervisor, and this went on all day. And my grandmother sat resolute. She said, I'm not leaving here until we have our house. And don't you know, right before the bank closed, he came back out and said, look, we're going to figure this out. They did whatever they had to do. And she walked out of there with the
Papers, yeah,
for her house. That's the kind of faith that she had. And that's the kind of crazy faith that her granddaughter has. And when you have a dope podcast like this and you give us space to be able to talk about amazing people, amazing things, it just reiterates the truth about the power of story and that we are living our ancestors' wildest dreams.
You sure are. And listen, we can get to, I have this whole presentation about telling your story, but that's for another podcast. But Stacie, I wanted to take a moment to now tell you why I think you're dope. And it's really, really simple and it's really immediate because you're dope because you're doing this right now. What do I mean by that? You are a entrepreneur, a faithpreneur, right? A faithpreneur. You are the international president of one of the largest organizations of Black women in the country, international president. There are a million and one things that you could be doing right now, but you never let go of the bonds that are important to you.
That's
right? And you and I have known each other, as they say in the Caribbean, donkey years. right?
Absolutely.
And so when I made the call, you were like, listen, we'll figure out the timing, but whatever you need. And I know plenty of people who you know them from coming up. You and them used to play skelly on the street in Brooklyn, and now they got a little money in their pocket and you can't see them, right? That has never been you. And that's the dopest thing I know about you is that for all of your accomplishments, you stay true to, you dance with the people that brought you there. Right. And that's amazing to me. And that is something that I will always love you for.
Oh, I love you back because that same dope grandmother, the way she was influential in my rearing, as the West Indians would say, my mother was blessed to be able to have both her parents and her grandmother around as I was growing up. So they had influence in my life. We never believed the hype, right? Don't drink your own Kool-Aid. You're here to do what God has placed you here to do. So when people's like, oh, you're so humble. What is there? There's no other way to be because it's there for the grace of God that I'm able to do what I do. And I never want to get to any place where I feel that the air is, much better up here. That's not who I am or ever desire to be because I want to hang out with dope people like you.
Well, and I am so grateful for that because I can always say, well, I know. Well, Stacie, thank you so much for sharing all of that. And we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to hear what dope thing you are doing or have done. And we'll get right back to that right after the break.
I see dope people.
And we're back with dope people today. My guest is Dr. Stacie N.C. Grant, and I got my British T-shirt on. For those of you who don't know, I was actually born in London, and I'm like trying that out in case things don't go so well in this kind of country. But in the meantime, we're talking to Stacie, and Stacie, I hope you're having a good time. And
I am.
Excellent. And so when we wanted to really talk about what you're doing that is dope right now. Now, it could be something that you did one time where it's like, you rescued a guy from jumping off a bridge, or something that you are consistently doing? So Stacie, tell us, what dope things are you up to?
Well, besides the dope honor of being the international president and CEO of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, I also, as you mentioned before, have my own company, actually two. But what I'm doing that's dope is actually building the Faithpreneur TV network. So this is our global network to be able to amplify the work of faithpreneurs in the marketplace, doing amazing things from theater to real estate to authors to podcasters doing dope things, but really creating this network. So we're in the funding mode and expansion, and it's just really exciting to build out this Faithpreneur TV network.
Wow, that
Mhm.
see, and this is why I love having this podcast, because even I get to find out all of these new things from these people that I am so closely associated with. So where will this TV channel, will it be a cable channel or something that has its own streaming content? How's that work?
So we are in negotiations with a few options. We already have secured some cable opportunities for us to stream, but we want to do it a little differently and be able to incorporate social media, traditional TV, and cable. So look out, and you can just follow what we're doing with some updates at faithpreneur.me, and just get involved in what we're doing. It's going to be built for faithpreneurs by faithpreneurs.
Sure. If you need a voiceover talent, let me know, because
I will. I
I
will.
I got two kids that eat a lot of food, so we got to feed them.
You leave those beautiful girls alone.
And so, Stacie, we end every podcast with a dope moment in history. And so, I had to pull something that had to do with Zeta in it. So, our dope moment is about Zora Neale Hurston. And Zora Neale Hurston is a member of a former member, well, a member of Zeta Phi Beta. She has passed on. But most people know her for being a novelist, so they all know about Their Eyes Were Watching God and her being part of the Harlem Renaissance and the whole nine yards. But people don't remember, or not a lot of people recognize her as she is an anthropologist. Right. And so one of the things that I'm starting to read now, and I came across, and a lot of people know about it, but hey, this is news for me. So I'm bringing it, and I'm sure it's news to other people, is that she wrote a book called Barakun, right? And Barakun was about a man named Cujo Lewis. And Cujo Lewis was the last remaining surviving member of the last slave ship called the Clotilla that arrived in on the shores of the Americas. So he's the last surviving person that was brought over by this slave ship. She did an article in 1927, and the article, talked a little bit about his life and what he was doing and what happened to him when he came to the United States, and to the colonies back then. But then that got into a whole bunch. It's the one time that she was accused of plagiarism. And so she was like, oh, really? And so she went deep into it. She went and interviewed him. She spent all this time in Alabama and created this book called Barakun. And it is a semi-fictional recanting of his life, but it's written in his own words. So it's written in the slave, well, not the slave, but the formerly enslaved narrative. So there are all of these words and all the way that he actually talked in the book, and it's written in that language. So it's not cleaned up. It's not glamorized in anything. You get it the way he said it. And it's an amazing book, and it's an amazing look at how this formerly enslaved African moved through the system and what he had to do in order to survive. But her work as an anthropologist is just as dope as her work as a novelist. So I just wanted to make sure that people knew that.
Yes, she was truly a dope person, and so many layers to her experience in this country, and what she contributed. And we're proud as an organization to be able to support the work and the introduction of more of her work. Most people are familiar with Their Eyes Are Watching God, but they don't know the whole collection, and they don't know the anthropologist side. So thank you for sharing that dope fact about our Sora, Zora Neale Hurston. And when you talked about the pond, being across the pond, I didn't realize that you were contemplating where we might land.
Listen, I gotta have options, man.
But as my constitutionally bound brother, I understand that we might have to explore different options. But what's dope is because of dope podcasts like yours, people can be introduced to new thoughts, new ideas, and new opportunities to be able to live their best life, right? That's what I'm here to do, is encourage people to do that. Be around dope people like you so that we can change the world, especially when it's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and put it back on the right track.
Yes,
And make
ma'am.
it better than how we found it.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Well, Stacie, again, I want to thank you for your time. If somebody's looking for you, how do they find you?
So if they're looking for me, there are multiple ways. What did the kids say? I'm Googleicious. No, if you
Google.
want to find me,
Even if they're not saying this, I'm going to start saying
you're
that.
gonna start saying it. But you can connect with us at destinydesignersuniversity.com, or you can go faithpreneur.me, and it has links to some of the things that we're doing. Makes it a little easier for you to connect. And on social media, you can find me on all the apps. The only one I'm not active on right now is TikTok. I'm there, but I'm not active. My kids threatened me and told me that I couldn't be on TikTok, but I've defied them. I started a TikTok. So you can find me anywhere where good things are happening. And of course, around dope people like Hayden Green.
Love it, love it, love it. And well, and if you love this podcast and you love this episode, please make sure you subscribe, you save, you follow, do all the things. And if you know a dope person that should be one of my guests, please get in contact with us and we'll get them on the show as soon as possible. But until then, check Stacie out, check out our other episodes, and next week we will have another dope person for you to meet. And until that time, go forth and be dope.